Yeah, just so everyone knows, we got a copyright strike for Pump It Up, so can't start the
Can't be
recording of Pump
recording.
It Up anymore. Yeah.
Our video got taken down.
It did not.
Kind
Yeah,
of
it did
funny.
take it out, didn't it?
Well, they just like, do they just demonetize it, or do they completely like remove
It wasn't
it from
removed.
you?
It was just demonetized. Yeah, they
Oh, because
deleted it.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
We're not making money on that shit either.
um, so just some general housekeeping stuff. A couple things about Rarity Sniper. The team is looking into it continuously. From like my personal understanding, it's a matter of like the batch turnover in terms of like the API update with Rarity Sniper itself. The product team has a long laundry list of things to attend to, so we should have some clarity on that this week in terms of why it's not updating and when it should be updated. Um, but I think you can sort through all that stuff on OpenSea. It's just a little bit more complicated. Yesterday we had our first community outreach committee meeting. It was awesome getting to meet a lot of them. Justin of the Fox is in the audience. Met her at Expoverse, but it was awesome, getting to chat again. I see Abe is in the audience now. It was a great opportunity for Abe um, to hear from some of the community members, and there was a lot of productive things that I learned from them about kind of how they found Silks and kind of what got them into Silks, and so many things that we like hadn't really considered. And it was great to hear that perspective and kind of look at how are we going to attempt to re-engage new users into our platform, into our Discord. So it was a great initial discussion, and we're excited, that that's kicked off, and we've got the Thoroughbred Horse Racing Committee is our last one to kick off, and that'll be soon. But the Game Theory Committee will be meeting tomorrow, so they're gonna have their second meeting. Um, should be talking about some really interesting stuff regarding horses, and I know they're super excited to continue to provide their input. And they've been talking to a lot of people in the community, trying to gauge different inputs and opinions on certain things that they're talking about. So we're super excited to be continuing it. Um, we're putting up an art contest today. I guess a little alpha. We're super excited to. We've got some cool graphical assets. We've got a lot of requests from like artists in the community that really liked our first one. We saw some really cool stuff come out of it, and we're excited to launch this one with some a pretty unique prize structure. So look out for it. And then yeah, just continue to stay tuned for this partnership alpha stuff that Dan was alluding to this week. And um, other than that, let's move into on the radar, shall we?
On the radar, starting off with like pretty strange story that I
Couple
saw
of
in
things.
one of these newsletters I get. It's a like tornado, Ether, new PFPs. Just starting out with this more random project that I came across. Um, there's a
Got it.
movie. Do we have that slide?
Yeah, I'm putting it in right now.
Okay, no. I just want to be able to see it.
My computer froze. Sorry. Can you
All
hear me?
good, brother. Yes, we got
All
movie
right, cool,
release
cool.
NFTs. And my question is this the future of movie releases? So just like to go over it real quick, the movie's called 18 and Over. It's a cult erotic slasher flick directed by some dude I don't know, but it's starring like people like G-Eazy, ASAP Nast, like Winnie Harlow's like a really famous model, Pamela Anderson, obviously, Paris Hilton. It's kind of weird. With the goal of disrupting the film industry with quote to benefit all of independent filmmakers, fan communities, and major studios alike. And they are trying to like give an experience of fan engagement and film ownership that has never happened before. And when I saw this, it like stood out because obviously NFT it seems like the perfect technology to sort of like allow the average person like access into a world like film, like the film industry, where it's like usually like very boarded off. There's high barrier to entry, and you need to obviously know a lot of people. So the collection is like it's like they're like character NFTs. They look like PFPs, and they give you an access to like an exclusive collector's cut, like of the film 2 months before it comes out, and then you get like access to like community, blah blah blah, virtual hangouts, nah nah nah. But the cool part about this is that holders are able to like collect like a rebate or like a royalty on distribution of the movie when it actually releases. So user or holders, believers will get royalties from the sale of the movie. So my question to you guys is this the future of creating movies? Because to me, this is interesting, and it's kind of cool. It's a cool way for fans to feel like inner circle and sort of like relating to silks. It's like you get rewarded for being early. And this is in an industry that's very exclusive, and usually we don't get to be involved in things like this. But I think a more interesting implementation would be like if an independent filmmaker or artist raises capital around like a seed round of like selling NFTs, and then the community bands together to create that movie together. It seems more interesting than simply buying an access pass to an early release. And then if you're a holder, potentially gaining royalties. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd be interested to hear Dragon Hot Dog's thoughts on this. To be honest, I know we talk a lot about like future use cases for NFTs, and like we'll get into like what proof of stake actually means, a little bit later on. But I think it's super cool.
I think anytime that you're looking at providing something that disrupts the status quo, it's always interesting. This concept, you've already seen it to a certain extent. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the movie Super Troopers, that comedy with the Broken Lizard Club, I think is what they're called. So they created they had a sequel, but they paid for the sequel. A lot of the sequel was paid via crowdfunding. And you see many types of projects now, they're being put up by crowdfunding, and how people got their rewards that they received. They got swag from the movie. I think some people actually got to be in a scene in the movie, depending on how high of a donation they made. People got their names in credits, whatever the case may be. So that concept has happened in the past, and it still goes on. I think Yeti wasn't Yeti crowdfunded, the cooler product. So this idea happens, and I think it's just a natural evolution when you're taking it now to NFTs, and it's just a different manner to connect with a generation that growing up in this space with crypto and NFTs to have an opportunity to have ownership of it. So yeah, I think it's clever. We've seen it, but it's just, as I mentioned, just an evolution of what happens. I suspect you'll see more of this moving forward if this thing has some legs to it.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's sort of like crowdfunding. I didn't really think of it like that. It's like, but this is kind of weird. This was weird to me because it was almost like it's not really crowdfunding because the movie was already made, and usually like with crowdfunding projects, the product is still being built like with the funding that the users provide, but this was already created. But yeah, still, I think there's going to be lots of implementations of this. All right, next up we got Starbucks utilizing NFTs for their 27 million plus user rewards program. You can see there's some pretty smart people tweeting on the right side. We got some screenshots.
I know that guy.
Yeah. So Starbucks, in the past, they commend themselves on embracing tech in the past because of their app, and now embracing technology in Web 2, and now they plan to implement NFT features in this Web 3 space now to stay ahead of the curve. So back in May, their chief marketing officer, Brady Brewer, provided an outline on like their idea of creating a digital third place, which is some like wonky Starbucks term for where people hang out besides work home, the third place. So they're like planning on this very like press releasey wording that they have released so far with like very minimal details, but they plan to create a series of like brand NFTs, the ownership of which initiates community membership, allows for exclusive access to experiences and perks, blah, blah, blah. We've heard all this shit before. Collaborations with other innovators and like-minded brands. They're willing to say they're willing to move fast, experiment, learn, collaborate, and like sort of build a community through coffee art and storytelling. Lots of mentions. I'm just like going through these quotes of unique experiences and benefits worthy of a Genesis NFT collection from a large company like Starbucks. And this to me, like I was like, wow, like it's happening. That's
what I think.
These companies are moving in, and I think my main thought when I heard all this was, is this going to like actually onboard? I saw a lot of discussion on Twitter, and I got into some like conversations with people if like this is actually going to onboard people into Web3, which is like kind of what I cared about most. You could see like people were like throwing shade at them and like saying that this is just like a corporate stupid thing. But from my perspective, it's like I don't really care what Starbucks does if it's going to onboard users into Web3 that puts more money in the ecosystem that actually allows it to be built up more and um, it makes it more mainstream. That is what I viewed as a positive. You think the same thing?
I mean, I think that the only thing that we can see for more engagement from like larger like corporatized industries within the United States is stuff like, for example, think about a Costco card as an NFT. Like things down the line that these large brands um, can literally incorporate proof of stake technology into their ecosystem, but it's not even like you couldn't even consider it to be it doesn't even have to be a Web3 business. It doesn't have to be a Web2 business. It doesn't even have to be a
Hmm.
Web1 business, right? Something like Starbucks, a traditional coffee shop, right? Or a grocery store like Costco. These things are not built with technology in mind, right? And so when you think about like, it just makes me excited to think about like the capabilities that blockchain can provide to these otherwise like I wouldn't call them basic, but just brick and
They're like
mortar,
web. I would say like web more like traditional Web 2. It's like product consumer.
just product consumer. Exactly.
Um,
Any thoughts on this, Mr. Hot Dog?
Yeah, I think Butter's comment is really well stated about giving an opportunity for more eyes to get
Yep,
into Web3, but not just look at it, but have a way to easily get into the space.
exactly.
We're doing it, analogous to what we're doing with Game of Silks. We're giving people an opportunity to purchase a Genesis avatar with their credit card to again eliminate barriers to entry for people to get in who are uncomfortable, who are just not familiar with this space, as
Yep.
many of us are that came into it. So if you're using brands like Starbucks that are very well known, and they're adopting and trying to figure out a way to get people into the NFT Web3 space, that will only benefit all of us that are listening onto the call now and those that will hear the recording in the future. That this is what we're looking for, that we can ride the coattails of these corporations because it's providing brand recognition. And quite frankly, it's providing that credibility that this is not a flash in the pan uh, project, the NFTs, that this is real and has legs. The, the thing that we have to look for is what's the use case? These
mhm.
things will only succeed if they have a tangible, viable use case that people, they don't just use it once and move on. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's great to see companies like Starbucks giving opportunities for people to get into Web3.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it is cool, and you could see just like one more talking point. In my tweet, I said that security education will be incredibly important for onboarding, and by this, I kind of got into a little tiff with someone on Twitter because, for in at least what I think, and I'm wondering what you think, if you think I'm wrong or whatever. I think that, but I meant it is the like responsibility for large companies who are onboarding people who will most likely be completely unfamiliar with the Web3 space. And each of us definitely knows, I bet we've had hardships in the past when we were getting onboarded. I made a lot of mistakes. Do you think that it is there's an obligation for a company like Starbucks, if they are potentially onboarding 27 million people, to provide security education around the entire space for them?
I don't think it's an obligation, but I think it's an expectation. Um, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it goes hand in hand. If your brand is the one that's putting out a project, regardless of what the project is, if your users have a hard time with security, have a hard time with onboarding, it will not be a reflection necessarily of Web3. It
Yep.
will be a reflection of the brand that put it out there. It'll be on Starbucks,
Yep.
not performing in a way that educated people or helped them get through the process. So, but I agree wholeheartedly that if you're going to put yourself out there into a brand new space like Web3 as Starbucks, you best make sure that you have the education, you have the support in place to get someone on there, because that could really
Hmm.
help. That could, if you don't, your net promoter scores, for those of you familiar with that from a marketing perspective, will immediately drop if you don't do it correctly.
Totally.
Yep.
Love that. I
Uh,
see we got the next slide in here.
yeah. This next, so there's just like a ton of stuff that came up, so we just kind of wanted to do one more slide from the radar, which is a few things. If you have anything on the the Tornado Cash tab. I mean, I thought that's pretty interesting. Like, for those of you guys know, we talked about it like briefly last week. Tornado Cash, the I guess mixing protocol,
Mixer.
um,
Yeah.
Mixer, yeah, it's been heavily sanctioned in the U.S. The owner, or I guess the creator, the original developer, that I think he's located
One
in
of the
Amsterdam.
just like one of the devs
Yeah,
was
one of the devs from Amsterdam was arrested, but someone like Do Kwon is literally
Yeah.
walking around giving interviews to this day about Luna. And it's interesting because it's like this platform wasn't intended as a hacking tool; it was intended as a privacy tool. Whereas something like literally selling off 75% of your fractional share of the coin that you developed, um, essentially depegging your own stable coin and screwing
Yeah, Do
over
Kwon's a
hundreds
little
of
piece of
thousands of
shit.
investors. Um, Anything to add on that?
It's a little different between Do Kwon and that. And you know what?
Yeah, of
Yesterday I
course.
saw like a tweet that was like, "Oh, the war on coders," like, and
Yep.
without like digging in more, I was like, "Oh my, this is like the war on coders," because this guy sort of made a tool, and it's kind of weird that a tool like this that is very open-ended. Obviously, anything can be used for malicious intent, and yeah, Tornado Cash was used a lot for malicious
Yep.
activities. But it's like it's weird to place a sanction on some sort of like neutral technology like that in the first place. And then I thought that the dev was arrested for like making it initially, but I learned to I think I
Nope.
saw some like someone posted on like LinkedIn, and I saw some Twitter threads that were like the guy was like I think he was intentionally hiding certain hacking activity, this specific dev, which is obviously
Yeah.
why he got arrested and like kind of worthy of it. Um, but yeah,
Just
I
makes you
mean,
think.
we're on coders is like an interesting thing because what if you make a tool that is neutral in like theory, and then it obviously has the potential to be
Right.
used by a lot of bad actors, but then so does a lot of stuff. It's weird, and it's gonna happen a lot more. And there's so much shady stuff going on in this largely unregulated space. And there's going to be a lot of not cool, interesting headlines that we're going to read in the coming months.
5 people from the multi-sig wallet withdrew their sign. Yeah, people just wanted to wipe their hands clean of everything. Like I saw, like people are just transferring like their mixed ETH into like known like ETH addresses, like steveaoki.eth, got a bunch of ETH transferred to him from Tornado Cat, just like
Oh,
random
to fuck
wallet
with them?
addresses. Yeah, exactly.
Like
As they're
so that
trying to
they're
like,
going to like check him out now?
I guess they're just trying to like wipe their hands clean.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally on this chart was pretty interesting. I saw this yesterday. This wallet, I don't know if this is Vitalik or somebody on the dev team because this is a hell of a lot of ETH, but almost 6 years ago, this wallet had purchased 1.5 million USD worth of ETH, or 150,000. ETH was $11 on the day that this ETH was purchased. As you can see, it sat about for about 2 years, and then another 0.000 something was transferred in, and then just yesterday,
What?
slowly, you can see the first transaction. My dude sent 1 ETH as a test transaction, and then
Oh,
followed it up with 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 15,000,
but
20,000.
those are different wallets too, right? Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
couldn't see.
like 4 or 5 different wallets with like 20,000 ETH each in it. But just activated. This screenshot was taken this morning, so yesterday morning ish, which is pretty cool to see that this person didn't lose their ETH, and that now after all this time, as we approach the merge, this wallet's kind of woken up.
That's crazy.
Speaking of the
Dude.
merge,
Yeah. Yeah, I was just converting the 5,000 ETH. That's
crazy.
crazy. He probably has so
Well,
many ledgers. All right.
this is a huge topic.
Yeah,
This is something that we're not going to be able to cover in 20 minutes or so. The stable table. We plan to do multiple tables around this, and just trying to make sure everybody's kind of up to speed on what's exactly coming, and what kind of stuff's changing. There's a lot like I had to brush up on and learn like myself, and watch a lot of videos and kind of understand like what's happening on chain, what's happening off chain. Like my
this is
existing
just
ETH.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's like I cannot understand this level of like Like
So why don't you get into it?
we watch videos. Just understand that I'm not a dev.
Yeah, same. I'm
Okay,
going to say
so
that too.
yeah, okay, so the merge. It's on everyone's mind. Everyone's talking about it. The expected release date is September 15th to the 16th, so it has never been more relevant.
1 month.
Yeah, in short, it's the transition of the Ethereum network from proof of work into proof of stake. And it sets the stage for future scaling upgrades like sharding, which I don't understand, and it reduces Ethereum's energy consumption by 99.95%. So
So why
it
don't we
is
just start off by talking about proof of work versus proof of stake?
okay, proof of work. Proof of work is how ETH is working right now, how transactions are validated. After all, this is what the network does. So the network is secured by miners right now who must purchase and run mining hardware. And then those miners use their hardware and consume electricity in exchange for block issuance, and they validate the blocks, and then they earn a portion of the transactions fees in exchange for using their valuable electricity and computing power to mine blocks of Ethereum and validate transactions. That's how it's done now.
Let me stop you right there. So based on what he said, using like a lot of electricity, most people are kind of aware of like that like umbrella term of like what mining like crypto is. You hear about like people purchasing like large amounts of land in like rural states like Idaho or Wyoming and just building these like supercomputers essentially that just
Yep.
mine Bitcoin all day and all year. The problem is that that consumes a lot of energy and power. It's
It's
not
terrible for the
necessarily the most.
environment.
It's terrible for the environment. We actually met a company at LA Expoverse that is um, working on like renewable
Yeah.
data energy, which is we were talking. It's obvious in the audience probably laughing right now. But we were talking to those guys, and it kind of didn't really make sense at the time. But as we kind of continue to like do this research on like the amount of energy that's being used from this like proof of work concept, um,
It's
it's a lot.
insane.
But this is different than like what Silk's definition of mining is. So I just want to make that like crystal clear. That's why I interjected. Just if anybody in the audience isn't aware, um, this type of like mining of crypto is independent of what our mining in Silk's like. Continue.
Okay. So proof of work is how the network runs now. Now, proof of stake, it does not use mining and it does not require all that computing power. Instead, the network is secured by validators who have to stake certain amounts of Ethereum. And the validators don't consume much electricity. And proof of stake aims at making ETH much more efficient, secure, and it enables scalability with sharding down the road, which I'm not even going to attempt to explain because I don't know how to explain it. I'll drop the video that I watched in the chat after the show, or Ben, if you have the link, and comment when your head fell off, because mine fell off at around 4 minutes. Essentially, proof of stake. I'm just going to keep going on my notes before I lose my mind.
Yeah.
So instead of just dangerously transitioning ETH from proof of work to proof of stake, the devs created the Beacon chain, which works on proof of stake, which runs in parallel to the ETH mainnet. So it allows that Beacon chain to be tested without having an impact on the actual mainnet, which runs on proof of work and handles billions of dollars in transactions daily. So it doesn't affect that. This also gave enough time for the proof of stake network to get enough stakers in to become validators so that the network would have enough validators to be stable upon launch. And then the second step of this process is merging the proof of work network with the proof of stake network, or the Beacon chain. This merges the consensus layer of the Beacon chain with the EVM state of the ETH proof of work mainnet chain that's live right now. So a great analogy that was posted on ethereum.org is, imagine Ethereum is a spaceship that isn't quite ready for an interstellar voyage. With the Beacon chain, the community has built a new engine and a hardened hull. After significant testing, it's almost time to hot swap the new engine for the old mid-flight. This will merge the new, more efficient engine into the existing ship, ready to put in some serious light years and take on the universe. So it's like switching the engine of a car from like a regular engine to an electric engine while the car is still driving without ever stopping the car. Which is a better way to explain it, and it kind of helps me like not make my head actually explode. Yeah, that's what really helped me. So when this merge happens, It's the official switch to the Beacon chain. It's the engine of block production. Mining will no longer be the means of producing valid blocks. Instead, the proof of stake validators assume the role and will be responsible for processing the validity of all transactions and proposing blocks. Now, when this
That's done through
happens,
staking.
what?
That's done through staking.
Through staking, yeah.
Yep.
And also, it means that the barrier to entry to validating blocks on Ethereum and getting rewarded in transaction fees is no longer only, you're not barred out because big institutions with a lot of money can make supercomputers and do it too. It lowers the barrier of entry to that because that's obsolete now. You're not mining with electricity and high computing power. You're mining with your ability to actually stake ETH. So that's a lowered barrier to entry. And when this merge happens, no history is lost. All of the ETH transactional history is preserved, and users do not have to do anything. Funds are safe. They've made it very clear to beware of scams that say, quote unquote, switch to ETH 2.0, buy ETH token 2.0. There is no ETH 2.0. It's just a merge. It's a network merge. So don't fall for anything stupid, essentially, because you do not have to do anything.
The big thing between Ethereum and Bitcoin is Ethereum allows the use of smart contracts to process data and validate data. And a cool thing about this merge, and the cool thing about, like, I guess, ETH 2.0 is with this energy consumption, there's a lot less networking power that's required for the blockchain itself to sustain, because it's all sustained via validators that are staking their ETH, as Butters just explained, right? So essentially, what I'm getting at is, with less congestion on the network, then the network will not only be able to process transactions faster, I guess the transaction fees, the gas required on all transactions will be significantly lower, just based on the optimization of these contracts as a whole. And that's just something that Ethereum as a chain allows us to like take advantage of, I guess, as like a developing community, as it's like open sourced. So we keep talking about gas, there is no gas, like that's not true. But it's the amount of power that's required process transactions is significantly lower. So that's kind of what the reference is in terms of gas. But in terms of like our game, the reason that Silks is built on Ethereum is because the use of smart contracts and the flexibility that allows us to kind of develop and process transactions is barred none to any other chain that produces peer-to-peer transactions.
P2P.
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 I thought there was another interesting component to this proof of work to proof of stake transition that people have been talking about, and it has to do with the miners themselves. And the miners, because of all the energy consumption that they're using with all of these CPU cards, what have you, they have to pay the electrical bill. So as they mine ETH, that ETH, portions of it go back into the market to be sold. So there's constant sell pressure on ETH because the miners have to make their money back to pay for their electrical costs. What in theory could happen is when you have less ETH being mined, or at least I shouldn't say less ETH being mined. You don't since the electrical costs aren't necessarily there for the miners any longer. You don't have that as a potential sell pressure. You're not going to necessarily see all this extra ETH getting dumped into the market from a sell standpoint, because people aren't having to pay their electrical bills because they're mining. So the little nuance that very well could start having an impact. Again, not financial advice or predicting anything, just saying could have an impact on ETH's overall price performance, because you may very well see less Ethereum on the market every day being sold because they're not being mined any longer via proof of work.
Very true. That's actually really interesting.
We're gonna have more like content on like the merge and kind of like what we're doing to like individually prepare as we get a little bit closer. I know I'm just continuing to, not financial advice, I'm continuing to buy Ethereum. You can see, like, moving on to this like last slide here, the scope on ETH currently. We're seeing a surge, but at the same time I'm a little bit cautious of it, because something that's interesting is because It hovers right up about at 2K, and it goes a little bit above 2K, but it's never going above 2100. So this is unbelievable. Palace just scored. But I've never seen it really go above 2K. As far as like more than $50 above. So it's really interesting to see that kind of people have sell orders in at 2100. I think, and a lot of congestion in there if people are trying to take some profit off the table before the merge. So I think that's just kind of why we're seeing a little bit of stagnation. Any thoughts on this?
I think that overall, with inflation and the economy, how it is right now, and based on the viewpoints of YouTubers I watch who are smarter than me on the economy, it doesn't necessarily make sense that we're going to be in a bear market anytime soon. So this will inevitably fall, I think. I think this is a almost like a high, compared to like a drug high. It's like mania. And I think that we're gonna go lower than the previous low. TBH.
Ooh, this is recorded.
Spicy
Butters.
take.
Oh boy, no
Hot take.
no financial advice. Hot take. Oh boy.
Yeah. Yep. I said it.
You're not the only person that I've talked to that has that opinion.
It just doesn't make sense. Like everything's gonna get so much worse.
Yeah, I mean there is this could be lining up for the definition of buy the rumor, sell the news situation.
It is by the rumor. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just be careful. Be careful you don't get caught.
I mean, just dollar cost average. I do.
I am being careful, but I also am I'm aware that I could get caught. So
dollar cost average, dude. Sell all your Ethereum and dump it all into Shiba Inu, dude. Like, what are you doing? Shiba NFTs.
Dude, Shiba flipped Avalanche. I got blown up.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, people. So I, full disclosure, I own Shiba Inu, and I have yet to find a YouTuber or an article that talks about why it pumped so aggressively
Nobody
over
can
the last
explain
48 hours. It just randomly shot up, and no one has yet put their finger on what it is that caused it. So I digress.
Strange. Hold up, wait. One more interesting thing I forgot to mention in my notes here about the merge. So obviously we talked about the energy and that mining crypto and NFTs and crypto have a overall negative impact on the environment, and that's a lot of like what the media focuses on is how it takes so much energy to do anything in the space. And with the merge aiming to reduce energy consumption by 99.95%, the merge would make ETH ESG compliant, which is some environmental thing, which is good for more regulator-driven institutions who want to explore the Ethereum ecosystem, but who were previously barred out either by fear of negative PR or some sort of like, rule they have within their organization or moral anything. So it makes ETH more friendly, also to like gamers and artists who are concerned about like crypto's environmental impact. So overall, the merge as well is going to attract a lot more people to the Ethereum ecosystem, which is very exciting. And
anybody, I guess this is a good question as we open up the floor here for open discussion. Does anybody have any like ETH 2.0, I guess quote unquote ETH 2.0 staked like on any exchange? I made the mistake of putting like $50 in Coinbase, so it's like locked up. But that's the only thing that I have in my Coinbase account, and it's ETH 2.0. Just curious.
How does that work?
To be honest, I don't know. They haven't said when like my tokens will be unlocked. I assume it'll be right around the 15th. But it's 3.5% APY instead of you get so much better options with different exchanges. Another reason why Coinbase sucks. But I did this like months ago, and I haven't been able to touch it since, and it's not really gaining any value. So
I love when you hate on Coinbase. It's so funny.
They suck, dude.
I agree with you.
The only thing they're useful for is buying it crypto and sending it straight out.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting like stumped with like a million verifications and all this bullshit. It's just, but in terms of holding assets, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, never don't keep it on an exchange. Not your keys, not your ETH.
Exactly.
Not your keys, not your ETH.
Not your keys, not your ETH. With that, does anybody have anything to add? Any comments about the merge? I'm sure there's somebody in the audience that is more knowledgeable about us more knowledgeable about it than us. So, anybody has any thoughts or comments about it? We'd love to hear from you. Oh, G Home, his weekly hand raise. Love having him up. What's going on?
Hey guys,
Doing it.
I wish I knew something about it. I don't. I really had a question on it with respect to the NFTs. I've read some articles that potentially you have to do a transfer with them. Does that
Ooh,
sound
yeah, I remember that.
off of proof of work over to proof of stake? Like a transfer will essentially clear it and get it from one chain over to the other. Is that accurate, or is that like a FUD article? Do you know?
So
I
Ben,
the
you
same
brought this
thing.
up to me, and I looked it up, and I saw like an article that said that, and it was from this dude Adam McBride, who I noticed. I remember the name because he's really big into like historical NFTs, and I've been a part of his Discord for a while. But he like was speculating that something like you would have to be safe, you would have to like transfer because something about like a dual chain thing that would happen, but there wasn't a lot of information out, so I'll just keep an eye on that. But as far as like
We'll
the
be
Ethereum
we'll be
Foundation
clear
goes,
about it, but I've seen the same thing. There's
ETH.org is
nothing you got to do
doing
yet
it.
though. We just don't want to have
Sweet.
anybody doing
Thanks.
anything early beforehand.
Yeah, that's all I had. I was curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I specifically avoided discussing it because it's a little sticky. But if that's the
Oh,
recommended course of action from the community, then we'll take that in stride. But as of now, no action.
okay. Well, you're welcome for that then.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, anyone?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love you, G Home. Anyone else? Got anything to add on this topic? It's like I said, we're gonna be talking about this more in depth as we get closer. I know Vitalik's got a lot of like documentation still on the way, so more information to be processed by people much smarter than us. So when we figure it out, we'll pass
Daddy
it along.
Vitalik
The requests are a little bugged, so I'm just gonna do a quick scan and see. And Mr. Hot Dog, anything else to add as we close out?
No, I think it was a really good call. I am Dragon Hot Dog, though, may have just created a YouTube channel. You can show that for a second.
Yeah, let's chill.